They have the tacit backing of the government, if nothing else. Because you got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants. Wales was built by immigrants. Did you know? That's what Alan Davis of the MS seems to believe. So he recently made the claim that Wales was not a country that was built on the backs of good men like my dad, my granddad, and people like that who were getting black lung down the mines and have contributed in every public service pretty much in this country, whether it's even just being, menial things like driving buses. They, as I said, they were down the mines, very hard work. You don't see many of the suffragettes trying to, or any of the feminists nowadays wanting to be miners or wanting to be bricklayers and all stuff like that, right? You don't see any of them wanting to do that kind of stuff for the most part. Wales is a country that has apparently been built on immigration and by immigrants. And that would be very likely why he supports a nation of sanctuary. I got a feeling he supports a nation of sanctuary as well, because he's banking on all those foreign votes coming in. So this is Alan Davis of Blaenau, Gwent. So you, my friends, in Blaenau, Gwent, Alan Davis believes it was not your mothers, fathers, and forefathers and your descendants that very likely, a lot of people can trace their roots in this land going back, hundreds, if not thousands of years. So it's not those people that built this land. It's not those Welsh people, those Welsh men and women, generations of them going back, that built this land. No, it was Abdul and Ahmed and Mohammed that have just come over on the fucking boats that have built this land. Did you know? Did you know? So this is the MS for Blaenau Gwent, ladies and gentlemen, explaining to you how, it's not the great men that were getting black lung down the mines that built this land. It's all the foreigners.
Wales is a country that has been built on immigration and by immigrants. And my constituents are the consequences of that immigration, as are most of us in this room, in this chamber today. I have been a strong supporter of freedom of movement for the whole.
Unless his constituents are completely immigrants. No, your constituents are the result of human reproduction that goes back thousands of years from people who are ethnically of this land, Mr. Davis. Not because of immigration, unless you're tacitly saying that the people you care about, your constituents, are those coming in, i.e. the foreign voting bloc.
All of my adult life. And one of the greatest gifts that the European Union gave us was to remove those borders and to remove those border posts, to remove that need to demonstrate that we're unable to move from one piece of turf to another.
Think back, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the rest of that clip. I don't think there's really anything more we need to go through with that clip. Think about all the women, the clips that we've been through on this show very recently, that they talk about one of the greatest things the EU done was to tear down the border posts, was to tear down all of these things, right? I'm sure the women of Europe right now, aside from the liberal, lefty, hyper-woke loonies, right, that are either not in any direct danger by virtue of them being in a very privileged position and being able to keep themselves away from all of the rapey foreigners that are coming across the border, right? A lot of women who are getting leered at, who are getting harassed on the daily by these migrant men because the EU has torn down all the borders and all the border posts and stuff like that, I don't think they're feeling very thankful. And it makes me sick that, I'm being used as a political football in this way for this MS's, this disgusting traitorous MS's want to push this globalist anti-Wales, anti-West agenda alongside his other colleagues in the Senedd. All of them pretty much disgusting traitors. And really, really makes you think. Somebody made a post today, which I had a visceral, angry response to. They were saying the people of Wales, devolution has failed. The people of Wales cannot govern themselves. They've shown themselves incapable of governing themselves. Power must be taken away from them before they destroy themselves and present themselves as a threat to the rest of us. And I had a visceral, angry response initially when I saw this post. How dare you say this? It's not the Welsh that are incapable of governing themselves and all of this stuff, right? Because I'm angry at my own government. But fact of the matter is, with the fruits that have come from devolution, you cannot say that this person was wrong. You cannot make a good argument as to why this person was wrong when you see the disgusting socialist hellscape that Wales has turned into. It tells you a lot. Where I left a comment on somebody's page right now about, they were talking about the Blaenau Gwent MS and stuff like that, and I said, well, sadly, it does appear that the voting bloc within Blaenau Gwent is very politically apathetic. They're naturally more liberal, left leaning. They don't turn up for things very often. We have a minority of people making the decisions because you have less than a 50% voter turnout, and at the councillor rate or whatever, it's even worse. You end up with like 30-20%, whatever it is. People are done. People are done with the system because they don't perceive it as doing what it says on the tin to do, because it isn't. Because it isn't. It's not the fact that we're in a democracy and we all have a say. That's a sham. We're being ruled and we have no say in it. I would imagine if you suggested that all refugees in Gaza should be allowed to come to Wales, that would probably make your stomach turn. Unless you're what's his name? Unless you're Lee Evans, for example, who's been dubbed the crying nurse of Cairo, who was giving a display outside of the Welsh Senedd recently, as we'll see. It's the iconic clip of the Welshman who went over to the Egyptian border with Gaza and was shocked. He was shooketh when he was greeted with men with guns who weren't feeling the same way about the Gazan refugees that he wasn't filled with the same suicidal empathy that he was, because funnily enough, those Egyptian soldiers with guns may know a thing or two about that area, and that's maybe why they have such a big border wall with Gaza. Not to mention the tunnels, which, the terror tunnels which go underneath into Rafah and things like that from Egypt. That's a separate conversation. But, they have a big border wall for a reason, because they know a thing or two about that population. But it should surprise you, ladies and gentlemen, that Plaid Cymru MS for South Wales, social justice in early years, pronouns in bio, hi, she, her. Sioned Williams, the epitome of the woke, liberal female politician that, Lord, please deliver us from white liberal women, has suggested that all refugees in Gaza should be allowed to come to Wales. This could total in 1.5 million people, potentially. It would not only place huge pressure on our public services, they would present a very good risk of being able to be overtaken completely. For you may not know, ladies and gentlemen, just pull it up right now for you. Wales, this is the most recent data this is just from Google. Wales only has about 3.164 million people total. We only have, just rounded down to 3 million. We only have 3 million people. If we were to then all of a sudden import 1.5 million people, without anything changing, obviously you'd have people dying and stuff like that. A lot of little towns and stuff, they have a relatively older population now. Because from things like feminism and the feminist movement, people just aren't having kids anymore, because feminism naturally bred to socialism and requires both people working for the most part and, not being able to have kids because you have nobody in the house to take care of them. So they rely on the school system. Then you wonder why they come out like a woke leftist lunatic. And then you remember, the government wanted all of this because they wanted access to your children. So, because of the decisions that we've made, which in my opinion largely stem back to the feminist movement, which then largely stems back, why it's a spiritual conflict, because that just outright stems back to a rejection of God and going along with Satan's ideals. Satan's like the prime number one feminist, right? We only have 3.2 million people thereabouts. We then want to bring in 1.5 million foreigners. And you think that's not going to have any effect on Wales whatsoever? Already then, you're then up to, so what is that? That's about 4.5 million people. You've got potentially 1.5 million person strong foreign army in your lands, and then they only need to be dispersed in certain areas, and they'll completely shift the voting demographics, because you think they're not going to give them the right to vote. Of course they bloody will. And then we'll end up really in a bad place. I said this on X recently. Whatever you think of Labour, Plaid are worse. I think they're kind of on par with each other, but Plaid are even more extreme than Labour on these things. And if Sioned here was to ever come to the levers of power in Wales, and people like her, God help us.
Is Wales ready and willing to welcome all refugees from Gaza, and not only those with British passports? There are 1.5 million internally displaced people in Gaza, which is more than half of the population, and half of all housing in the besieged Gaza Strip has already been destroyed or damaged. Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, along with City of Sanctuary, has called on the UK government to welcome Palestinian refugees to the UK and for the international community to commit to a worldwide refugee programme for the people of Gaza. Once the UK has done this, the First Minister of Scotland has said that their country was willing to offer safety and sanctuary to those being forced to flee death.
If they do this, there'll be make no mistake, Jeb, if they do this, you can follow the subtitles on if you want to hear more of this. Believe me, if they do this, there will need to be a mass refugee program for Welsh people who will all of a sudden become besieged in their own land. Make no mistake about it. People like Sinead here want to import votes to not allow the Welsh people to have control over their destiny. She's a disgusting traitor, as many of these politicians are. They are only concerned with being able to keep themselves in power, because with everything that they have done, with everything Labour have done, with everything Plaid have done, even with everything the Conservatives have done in Westminster and stuff like that, you can't really say Conservatives in Wales because we haven't had Conservatives in Wales for half a century, for a quarter of a century. So you can't really say the Conservatives in Wales, but you can in Westminster. All of them are only concerned now with trying to keep themselves in power so that they can keep their positions secure. Because if they were to be removed from power and they do not have the protections of the state and all of these kinds of things, can you imagine what the public want to do to them? Can you imagine what the public want to do to them? I can't remember who it was, what quote I saw recently, but it was a quote, and it was saying a great lamentation, the fact that more politicians aren't hanged. I can't remember who it was. Was it? I don't think it was Chesterton. I can't remember who. I can't remember exactly who it was. But this is what these people want to do. The people whom these people are meant to be representing are being actively, by their policies that they're passing, persecuted by them. And obviously these people are the most privileged in society. You don't really get more privileged than the leaders of a nation. You know, you get pretty much everything taken care of. You get access to taxpayer funds, which then obviously you can use for pretty much whatever fuck you want, unless you're accountable to God. You're accountable to nobody for the most part. You know, there's no more privileged position than, say, the President of the United States, even with all the responsibility that falls on top of them. You know? There's no more privileged position. You're not going home every night and worrying about when your next meal's going to come, how you're going to manage to pay your rent, all of these things, right? You're not worried about those things that the bottom tier of society are worried about. You know, worried about their lights going off, worried about they're going to be able to put food on the table for their kids, all of these things, right? Then worried about what they're learning in school. You have access to all the best schooling for your children. You'll have access to the best private tutors. You don't even need to send them to the schools. They're not going to worry about, you know, can you afford the extracurricular activities to put them on, like a school football team, or to, you know, to run a little small football team in your local town or something like that for your kids, so they can have something fun to do on the weekends and stuff like that. You're not going to worry about any of that. Money and all things like this, not an issue for these people. Not an issue for these people. And then they're doing all of the things to make life worse for the people at the bottom. Because they have no moral, they have a moral compass, it's completely inverted, but they have no moral accountability. We decided, for whatever reason, as a society, that we didn't want that moral accountability anymore. Either through reasons of saying that it doesn't exist, or the reasons of saying that we know better. And you need to look at history to say that when humans think they know better, things don't tend to go very well. As soon as they start to get prideful, things don't go very well. As I say, pride comes right before a fall. And I think a big fall is coming for these politicians. They know it. They know their people aren't happy. So they're trying to do everything possible now to make sure they don't get caught up in the avalanche that is coming. Because people are angry. People are angry, being lied and gaslit and taken advantage of for so long. And I mentioned to you the outlook of people on our side, the outlook of our own people, where they're campaigning for their own destruction, where they don't care about issues that are going on at home, but they'll be so vocal about things going on over the other side of the world. Charlie Kirk was completely right at the moment, where whatever side of the aisle you stand on, whether you're right, whether you're left, whether you're in the middle, focusing so much on things that are going on the other side of the world. And all of this is obviously going on in the most liberal, upper class, universities in like Oxford and Cambridge, where again, those people are coming from those ultra wealthy families where mommy and daddy's money will take care of everything, They don't have a single problem in their entire fucking life for the most part, other than just doing the base level of studying and, end up coming out of an indoctrinated lefty loony with, rainbow coloured hair and, more nose rings than a fucking bull, right? We have Lee Evans, for example, not the comedian, one of the greatest comedians of all time, in my opinion, who's been dubbed the crying nurse of Cairo after a display of emotion at the Egyptian border. And he has finally showed his true colours today. So there was a video that came out a little while ago of this Welshman went to the Egyptian border. I believe it was the border with Gaza, if I'm not mistaken. And, was caught on camera. People were taking the piss out of him. I took the piss out of him for crying, going on about all of this oppression and all of this stuff, right? And the Egyptian guards there, the Egyptian border guards with their guns, you'll see a little snippet of it now. I'm not sure exactly how long it is. But you have these Egyptian guards and they just look at him like, what, I think they're trying not to burst out laughing, right? Because they know exactly how radical the Gazan population is. That's why they have such a big fucking border wall with them. But later on, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Evans, after he was removed and came back from Cairo, after he was removed, was outside the Senate a couple days ago and was chanting the Bob Violin chant, or Bob Villain, however the fuck you say it. I don't really care. I just want to hear him called Bob Remigrated. That's what I want to hear him called. But showing his true colours, starts then shouting death, death to the IVF, death, death to IVF indeed. Not the sad victims, the embryonic humans of IVF, but to the process as a whole, so it doesn't kill more people. But here he's chanting death, death to the IDF, whilst draped in some kind of what looks to be Islamic garb. He honestly looks like the devil with a turban on. What he looks like, because it's bright red, and he's chanting through a megaphone with a Palestinian flag in the background right in front of the Senate. So, showing exactly where his allegiances is. Allegiances aren't to Wales. They're not to Wales. He evidently identifies more as a quote-unquote Palestinian. But again, don't really care about, whatever side of the people aisle people fall on with regards to the conflict in the Middle East at the moment. Care about that's taking up so much of our thought when we have, and discourse when we have so many problems going on at home, and people are more invested in what's going on in a foreign country, between two foreign, if you want to call them countries, whatever, between those two foreign entities over the things that are happening at home. And that was something that Charlie Kirk said in his debate with Ginge, with the Ginger student. And he's completely right about. And this is encapsulated in this video now, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm a nurse and I'm a pacifist. Allow us to march to Gaza. We're peaceful people, we're good people. So death to the IDF.
We're good and peaceful people.
I'm a nurse.
Right, watch this now, ladies and gentlemen. Watch this now. He's a pacifist. He's a pacifist, quote unquote. He's good people.
So death to the IDF. Death to the IDF.
Wasn't what the Welsh accent was created for. The Welsh accent was to sing the Welsh national anthem, be a good choir voice. It was not built for jihad chants, and this is quite clear, the evidence of that. It was not meant, the Welsh accent, the accent that is of my home, was not meant to chant death, death to the IDF. It was not meant to chant death, death to the IDF. It was designed for songs like Amawheed. That's what it was designed for. And Lee is proving that point time and time again. And speaking of us either not having enough problems, and this led to a funny interaction that I had on X recently with how much the government is spaffing your money up the wall. I go on about time and time and time again with the octopus of all the charities that they fund. Taxpayer-funded charities gay bird checklist. I'm not joking, ladies and gentlemen. There's a taxpayer-funded charity which I believe is called, what is it? Here it is, a Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales, and the page ended up actually blocking me after this, which was hilarious. I'll explain why in a moment. It says, SCOMA's Gay Bird Checklist. The following checklist includes our breeding species that cross-reference with a list of birds that display homosexual behaviour. And as you know, if you want to pass anything intellectual nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, and make yourself appear smart, you need a citation and a year in brackets. So we have a Bagamihi 1999 is the citation. And apparently the Kittiwake, if that's how you say it, or the Kittiwake, however you say it, Shelduck, the Razorbill, the Jackdaw, how dare they insult my beloved Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag ship like this, Guillemot, the Shag, okay, that one, okay, maybe I can buy that one, and the Raven all come under SCOMA's Gay Bird Checklist. And it was so ludicrous because, does it say on this how much they... it doesn't say on the post which I've got here how much they are receiving, but this is the post that they released. So this is what taxpayer money gets spent on in Britain, in Wales. This is what taxpayer money gets spent on in Wales. So as you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, this is SCOMA's Gay Bird Checklist. The fact of the matter is, what's really going to depress me is how many people just won't see a problem with this. How many people just won't see a problem, right? That's what's going to really get me, I think. And how many people, you can guarantee it, with the state of the education we have in this country, they're going to look at the checklist and be like, oh my God, I didn't know the jackdaw was gay. That's the kind of thing people are going to think when they look at this, right? And believe me, they will. Believe me, and that's why we're in a certain, position where we are as well. It's because we've allowed people to vote that really shouldn't be able to vote. But you have here, these are the birds that are on there: the Kittiwake, the Shelduck, the Razorbill, the Jackdaw, the Guillemot, the Shag, and the Raven. Right. So there was a post that they made, however. When they made this post, now, you may not know about this, ladies and gentlemen, X, the social media platform, allows you to look on there and see replies that people have hidden. Which is why, really, when people hide replies, like you might curate comments on a YouTube video and stuff like that, it really doesn't work on X, because you can just tap a little button right next to the post and it tells you the replies that they've hidden for whatever reason, right? And a lot of times it's because there's criticism or something like that. But I thought this was quite funny. So I made a post quoting this because I digged into the replies. There was one hidden reply to this post because I didn't exactly have many, quotes or comments or anything like that, views, whatever, because it's quite a small account. But it was a post. Somebody replied to this and they said, SCOMA Island, inclusive to all except wheelchair users, and turns off comments when called out for it. It can be done. Your excuses like, quote, cornerstone, unquote, are weak. And it received one like, right? So then they hid that reply. And I had to. I screenshotted it and I quoted their post, the Gay Bird post. I said, you hiding replies that are calling you out for hiding replies when you're called out is objectively hilarious, possibly even more so than the Gay Bird nonsense. And I was blocked for it. And they've since removed the Gay Bird post as well, by the way. So this is a post from a different account that still has the screenshot up of the post. So yeah, they've now removed the post about the gay... Got a laugh. They've removed the post about the gay birds. No surprise. No surprise. My camera's gone out of focus. No surprise there either. So they've removed the post about the gay birds. In fact, I'm going to just adjust my camera just a little bit. Wrong way. In the hope that it keeps me in focus a little bit more. There we are. Focus should be me, not Oppenheimer in the background. But they've now taken down the post about the gay birds. And yeah, I thought it was funny. And that tells you a lot about the credibility of the account and the credibility of a lot of the things that are being funded by the Welsh government. They're not exactly very credible because as soon as you call them out for hiding comments, calling them out about hiding comments, they block you. So yeah, that was really, really hilarious. It was really, really funny. But what's not funny, ladies and gentlemen, however, is we mentioned about the Nation of Sanctuary, mentioned about Plaid Cymru MSs, all of these, liberal traitors wanting to destroy our countries and destroy our people.